There are too many schools in America that fail to teach our children our history, and especially in having pride in our history. This is not just in our middle and high schools, but also in our colleges and universities. And there is also the challenge of teachers and instructors who believe that our country has been wrong throughout our history, and they convey their subjective perspectives to our young people. Therefore, I just want to take a few moments to give a brief history lesson about what happened this week, the 3rd through the 7th of June. Let us begin by remembering a small island atoll in the Pacific called Midway. The United States had just suffered a horrible attack on December the 7th, 1941. And the following day, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt delivered this speech.
Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate, of the House of Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
Soon, America launched an immediate response by way of the daring Doolittle raid on 18 April 1942 on Japan. It successfully showed that America was not defeated and that we would strike back. However, we suffered a tough defeat the 7th through 8th May of 1942 at the Battle of Coral Sea, and the Imperial Japanese fleet was making their way back across the Pacific with their eyes upon a strategic location with a ready-made airfield, Midway. The Japanese fleet was under the command of Admiral Yamamoto, and they possessed a heavy confidence that they maintained aircraft carrier superiority. Indeed, the USS Yorktown had been badly damaged at the Battle of Coral Sea and limped back to her home station for repair. The battle damage assessment was that it would take months to repair and make battle ready. However, U.S. Pacific Fleet Commander Admiral Nimitz knew we did not have months. And due to American industrialism, the Yorktown was ready in 72 hours and set sail to link up with the USS Enterprise and Hornet, vicinity of Midway Island. From 4 through 7 June 1942, one of the greatest naval battles took place near that flat atoll. Thanks to Navy cryptologists and PBY search and reconnaissance aircraft, the Japanese fleet was spotted. What ensued was truly a classic study in naval maneuver and carrier tactics. Well, that's something this old Army doggy would be hard-pressed to understand and certainly not explain. But the important thing is that the carrier USS Yorktown made the difference. Even though she was eventually sunk, it made a key and vital contribution in its aircraft. Military historian John Keegan called the Battle of Midway the most stunning and decisive blow in the history of naval warfare. It was Japan's worst naval defeat in 350 years. It was a decisive turning point in the Pacific Theater of Operations and set the stage for the Solomon Islands campaign, one of the first stops, Guadalcanal, where heroism would be defined. But 2 years later, during the same week, it was 5 through 6 June 1944, and America with its British, Canadian, and French allies were about to endeavor upon the greatest invasion known, Operation Overlord. We remember it as D-Day. It was the event to finally liberate the continent of Europe from the stranglehold of the Nazis. We all know the story, or perhaps I am under the assumption that we do. The evening prior, men of the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions jumped in behind the German lines to disrupt and seize key crossroads in order for the ground forces to push deep into the Normandy countryside. Due to anti-aircraft fire and weather, they were spread all over the place and missed their drop zones. However, wherever the paratroopers landed, they fought, even when dropped right on top of German Wehrmacht units in places like St. Mary Église. They fought through the night to secure their objectives because they knew what would occur at sunrise. Men of the Rangers braved the cliffs of Pointe du Hoc to take out German gun emplacements. Ronald Reagan remembered them in a breathtaking speech on the 40th anniversary of that landing. Then as the sun rose, the landing craft were launched, and scores of brave young Americans would hit the beach. They were from all over our great land and wore patches of the 1st Infantry Division and 29th Infantry Division hitting Omaha Beach. They had the ivy patch of the 4th Infantry Division, steadfast and loyal, and hit Utah Beach. And there landing with the assault force was Army Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr., who was later killed in combat. The casualties were massive, but they prevailed. And within the year, Germany surrendered and Europe was liberated from Nazism and the horrible specter of the Holocaust. See, this week in American history is all about men and women who fought to ensure freedom's flame was never extinguished. It is a week we should remember with pride and never forget their sacrifices. What is amazing to me is that there are countries that celebrate these sacrifices of Americans greater than America does itself. This week, if you are in the DC area, come down and take the time to visit the World War II Memorial and gaze upon the tribute to the battles of Midway and Normandy. If you just happen to get a chance to look at a piece of history, a World War II veteran, go up to them and shake their hand. See, just this week, we lost our last World War II veteran serving in Congress, New Jersey Senator Frank Lautenberg. Parents and grandparents, if you cannot make it to DC, sit down with the next generation and watch the films Midway, The Longest Day, Saving Private Ryan, or the miniseries Band of Brothers this week. The next generation must never forget the sacrifices of those before them in order to keep freedom's flame burning brighter than ever, and let those sacrifices inspire us to greater exertions to guarantee that their sacrifices shall not be in vain.